I'm Olufemi Sowande, born in Lagos, Nigeria, 11th of June 1954 to be precise. I grew up in Nigeria, did my primary and secondary school education in Nigeria, then came to the UK to do my A-levels and to do my degree. I did electrical and electronics engineering at the Liverpool John Moores University. It was Liverpool Polytechnic at the time. And subsequently I have done an MBA as well from the same university. I have never practiced as an electrical engineer though. When I got to the airport actually, I was delayed at the airport for a while. And my brother and my cousin who came to pick me up, unfortunately my cousin just died about 2 or 3 days ago in actual fact, that came to pick me up. They'd waited and waited and I didn't come out because I was detained by the immigration at that point to see what I was doing there. By the time they let me... Which
airport was it?
It was Heathrow. By the time they let me out, I actually just saw my brother. They were going, thinking I wasn't on the plane, and I shouted him, and then we were able to go. I think the time the immigration was just trying to establish what I was coming here for, what I wanted to do here. And one of the things I remember saying to them was that, look, I'm only here for 5 years, so I don't know what your problem is. Once I finish, I'm going the next day. I finished my exam. And anyway, eventually I came in. One of the very first things I noticed was the weather. I thought it was exceedingly cold, even though this was in August. And now I don't consider August to be cold, but it was exceedingly cold for me. Things just looked totally different because I'd never been to the UK before. That was my first trip to the UK. I was very, very surprised at some of the stuff I came across in England. And one of the very first experiences for me was, I remember we went into a maths class, the very first maths class, and this young lady just decided that she didn't need that class and got up and left the class. That was the first thing I noticed, and I thought, how can you just get up and walk out of a classroom? And then later on that afternoon, I noticed the head of department was queuing for his lunch. And I thought, gosh, this country is upside down. Queuing, head of department, in Nigeria, head of department would be sending someone to bring his lunch up to him. So I noticed all those things, and I noticed things, people telling their parents, oh, don't be silly, mother, or don't be silly, dad. And I thought, oh, this country is totally upside down. I couldn't get my head around some of that behavior. I think there were a number of issues, I have to admit, when I was in Wolverhampton, you always get the impression that as a black student, they don't expect you to achieve. I always remember that one of my teachers, even when I was just doing my A-levels, was one of those who probably didn't think you would achieve. But of course, I'm here today, and I did achieve. And then when I went to do my degree, we had a number of issues. I used to live off Scotland Road, which is regarded as quite a racist area in Liverpool. And the number of incidences that happened, I remember on one occasion, a little young boy, he must have been about 6, 7, no more than that, was calling me a honky, which is the wrong terminology altogether. But in my view, I think he just thought, well, that's a black person, I've got to abuse him. Not realizing that honky is actually an abusive word for white people. So that was one interesting thing. I remember there was a copper there, and the copper was sort of saying to me, just give him a slap or something, which you wouldn't get these days, obviously.
Is that police?
Yeah, it was a policeman who did that. Then the other thing which was memorable to a certain extent was, I remember on one occasion when we were all going home, and some of the Nigerian students that were there, and they got attacked by a group of white boys. They eventually called the police, but you won't believe it, at the end of the day, the police arrested them because the police didn't turn up for a long time. So when the police eventually arrived, these guys were angry, as you would expect them to be. And they did shout at the police, say, you know, we were being attacked here and none of you turned up, blah, blah, blah. The police ended up arresting them. There were no charges, actually, because in fact, one of the guys they arrested worked for the Nigerian High Commission. So that was done. But I found that really not a good place to be. The riot was in 1981 in Liverpool, and it was very significant for me and for a lot of others. And I'll explain why I say that in a minute. Because when I finished my engineering degree, as I said to you, I was offered the job, but I couldn't take it because of the Home Office situation. And what I then did was a friend of mine introduced me to a community organization, the Charles Wooten Center. And I started doing a bit of maths and English, teaching maths and English there. And then the riots came. And this was around the time, don't forget, that the Home Office was trying to get me to go back to Nigeria. Anyway, the riots happened.
What was the cause of the riots?
It was basically police brutality. That's what it was all about, basically. And what had happened was the police chased somebody into the famous Granby Street in Liverpool, and they tried to arrest him. And at one point, then the community rebelled against that. And the riots lasted well over a week. It stopped and then started again. But it was significant for me in the sense that around that time, the Charles Wooten Center became the hub of activity. Every politician in the UK came to Charles Wooten Center, apart from Margaret Thatcher, who was the Prime Minister at the time. But she had sent Michael Heseltine, who eventually became the Minister for Merseyside, as it was called. And then we had a conversation with Michael Heseltine to say that, look, here's a guy who's trying to take people off the streets, teach them, and you're saying, send him home. And the point is, we've got riots out there, and he's one of those who could actually help the situation. And as a result of that conversation, in actual fact, Michael Heseltine intervened with the Home Office, and they gave me a work permit to stay and work here. So that was a memorable event for me.
What part did you play during the riots?
I was, as I said, the Charles Wooten Center became the hub of activity, and the part I was playing was basically trying to calm things down as much as I could. We were negotiating with the police, and trying to get the police. And I remember one conversation we had with policemen, where the focus of the riot at this point was on the policemen. And I remember saying to him, to this police officer, if you take your men out of the area, we can guarantee there will be no problems. If you leave your men in the area, the problems will continue. They wouldn't have it. No, they can't abandon the area. By this time, they'd surrounded Liverpool 8. They had policemen from all over the country, actually, and in Liverpool at the time. It was the first time in mainland Britain that rubber bullets were used. And we collected some of that rubber bullet and was given to me, and I lost them to start with. And I really panicked. But thank goodness we did find those bullets eventually, because we wanted to show it to the press and so on. Because otherwise they might have denied that they used rubber bullets and so on. So that was done. And then some of us, when Michael Heseltine came, he basically said, I just want to listen. I don't want to talk. And a lot of people said, no, if you want to listen, then you need to go, because we need you to tell us what you think, and then we'll tell you. But anyway, some of us decided that it was worth pursuing that angle. And we met with Michael Heseltine, and we discussed with him what we thought the issues were. And I, in my own little way, I hope that helped. It led to a certain extent, that's why I said the riot was very pivotal for me. It led eventually to the establishment of a technology training center in Liverpool. And seeing that I had done electrical engineering at the university, I applied for the job to manage the technology center. So I actually started the technology centre off in Liverpool.